Hello once again. Welcome to Zephyr's BI and Analytics, where we learn by building BI projects. Today on this channel, I'm going to be walking you through how you can quickly analyze survey data using Power BI. So if it's your first time on this channel, please subscribe, click on the notification button to always stay updated when new videos are uploaded. So quickly, let's take a look at the sample data for the survey. Here is a sample of the survey data. We have about 7 columns, starting with the customer name, NPS, satisfaction rating, comments, needs met, responsiveness, and age. If we scroll down, we have a statement here. The survey result sheet contains details from a customer survey completed in January 2021. The Net Promoter Score (NPS) is a measure of how likely a customer would recommend our services to someone else on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being extremely likely. Analyze and calculate a total customer satisfaction stroke health score. So we're going to do this using Power BI. I'll publish a link for you to download the dataset online. I'll attach the link to the video description. So while we're here, I'll quickly just come to File. I would say download, and I'll click on Microsoft Excel to download the copy of the dataset. Once this is done, we can then proceed to Power BI to begin our analysis. Once my Power BI is open, I'll quickly come to Get Data from Excel Workbook. I'll click on the survey data from my download. I'll click on Open. So while I'm here, I'll quickly check the survey results and come to Transform Data. Great, so I have the survey data in Power Query already, but I notice we have some columns, some rows that we don't need, and also some columns that we don't need. So what I'll do, I'll simply come to Transform, or I'll stay in Home. I'll come to Choose Column, Choose Columns. I'll uncheck everything and select the columns we need. That's the customer name, NPS, satisfaction rating, comments, needs met, responsiveness, age. Those are the columns we need. I'll click on OK. Then I already know that we have 23 rows. So from 24, we don't need that. So what I'll do next is simply come to remove rows, or I'll come to keep rows this time around. I'll say keep top rows. What's the number of rows I want to keep? I want to keep 23 rows, and I'll click on OK. Great, so we have our data in order. So we need to perform just few transformations to this data. We know that our NPS score is on a rating of 0 to 10, with 10 being extremely likely to recommend our service to someone else. So why don't we just do a simple classification from, say, we want something that, okay, from 7 to 10 should be extremely likely that the customer is going to recommend our services to someone, while from 5 to 7 or 6 should be likely, then less than 4 should be not likely. So for that, to achieve that, we're simply going to come, so say we want to add a column, we want to add a conditional column. So we're going to call this column name. In this case, we can just say NPS meaning is based on the NPS score, that's the column. So we can simply say if NPS score is less than or equal to 4, it should be not likely. That means this customer is not likely going to recommend our services to anyone. So add another clause, if, that's else if now, else if the NPS score is less than or equal to 7, we should just say the customer is likely. Then finally, we can say extremely likely. So extremely likely will come on the else clause. So once we're done with this, we click on OK. So we have the NPS meaning. Now just click on this and drag it to the other end. So I place it side by side with the score. So a score of 10, extremely likely. A score of 9, extremely likely. If it's 6, likely. If it's 8, extremely likely. If it's 10, 7 is likely. So do we have anyone? Okay, that's 3. We have 3, which is not likely. So that's great. One thing we also can do is to create a bucket for our age. So we have different age here. We can actually create a column for age group, which is age bucket. So to do that, we're also going to use the same thing. We're going to stay on the age now. We're going to come to add column, conditional column. We can actually just call this age bucket or age group is fine. It's based on the age column. So we're going to say if age, this time around, we can say if your age is less than or equal to, let's say 35, we already know the ages between the ages we have, the least age we have there is 18. So we can actually say 18 to 35. The next clause we'll add now, if age this time around, we can say is less than or equal to, let's say 45 now. Then we can say your age is between 36 and 45. And finally, on the else clause, we can say you are 46 above or above 46 years. That's above 46. So with this, we've actually grouped our age. We can click on OK. Great. So you can check this side by side with the age. You can actually see that for the age of 36, that's 36 to 45. For the age of 28, that's 18 to 25. So with that being said, I think we're done with the simple cleaning we need to do for the data. We're definitely going to come back to Power Query, but before then, we're done for now. So let's quickly just come to File, click on Close and Apply. So once we're in Power BI, the first thing I'll quickly do is come to Enter Data. I'll just call this table Calculations. I'll click on Load. Great. So once that is done, we can begin our analysis. So the first thing we're going to do now is come to Table View. We need to analyze and say, we start with the NPS meaning by saying how many customers are extremely likely going to recommend our services. So we want to see from the total of 23 customers, what percentage of our customers are extremely likely going to recommend our services, what percentage are likely, and what percentage are not likely going to recommend our services. So we're going to be doing this for the NPS meaning. We're also going to be doing this for the satisfaction rating. We're going to be doing this for the comments. We're going to do it for the needs met and the responsiveness. Also, we have age group, so we can actually decide to see, we want to know the age group of our customers. So we can start by saying the first measure we need to create now is come to calculations, stay on calculations. I'll say new measure. This should be total customers now. We want to know our total customers. So this will simply be a distinct count. It can actually be a count since our customer names are unique. We're going to be using the customer name, so it's going to be a distinct count of the customer name. And this should give us, I'll commit this, this should give us the total number of customers. Once we have the total number of customers, we can then go ahead to do our visualization. So we can actually say, let's say I pick a stacked bar chart now. I'll simply say I want to know the total customers. Let's say I want to know the age group of our customers now. So you can actually see that we have more customers between the age of 18 to 35. Then we have 36 to 45. So I'll come to format. I'll turn on the data label. Great. I'll do same now. I'll pick another stacked bar chart and I'll pick, we want to know our total customers by the NPS meaning this time around and total customers. Great. So you can actually see here the NPS meaning is on the y-axis while the total customers is on the x-axis. Same for the customers age group. The age group is on the y-axis while the total customers is on the x-axis. So if I turn on the data label here, come to format, turn on data label. So you can actually see this now. In terms of age group, we have more of our customers between the age of 18 to 35. But for survey data, it's not actually proper to display numbers, to be displaying these numbers the way they are, saying we have 12 customers, we have 7, we have 4. So what we need to do is actually display the percentage of customers. So by 100%, we can actually say we have certain number of percentage of customers are between the ages of 18 to 13. We can actually use a donut chart for this since we have just 3 category here. So if I were to make a copy of this and paste this here and change this to a donut chart, we should be able to get the percentage that we are looking for. So here you can actually tell that we have 52% of our customers between the ages of 18 to 35. Then we have 7% of our customers, that's 30% of our customers between the ages of 36 to 45. Then just 17% between the ages of, that's above 46 years. So if I make a duplicate of this also and paste it here, we can actually convert this to a donut chart also. You can then see that we have 65% of our customers are extremely likely going to recommend our services, while 30% are likely, then 4% are not likely going to recommend our services. So what happens if you don't want to use a donut chart, you want to actually stick to your bar chart? What do we need to do next? So we need to create a different measure rather than have total customers. What we need to do now is create more like customer total customers percentage, so we can actually visualize the chart based on the percentage of customers rather than the numbers. So to do that, I'm going to stay on calculations now, and I'm going to say new measure. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to also call this measure total customers, but I'm going to add a percent sign to the front. Then next, I'm going to say divide. What do we want to do? We want to divide the total customers now. Put a comma, come down. Denominator, calculate total customers. So I'm going to refer to my table now. I'm going to say all. This is to remove all the filters. So the table name is survey results. I'll close. Hit the enter button, close. So this is just a simple measure to calculate the customers based on percentage rather than the values that we have, just like the total customers. So once this is done, I'm going to click on commit. So watch what happens now. If I select the first chart and I uncheck the total customers now, replace it with total customers percent. Now I'm going to format it. I'm going to stay on total customers and I'll come to format and I'll format it to percent. Once this is done, you can then compare them side by side. So for age between 18 and 35, that's 52.17%. Look at it on the donut chart, we have 52.17% also. So we'll do same for the customers NPS meaning. I'll uncheck the total customers, I'll replace it with total customers percent. So you also see that we have same percentage. So it's up to you to choose now if you want to use the column chart or the donut chart to represent this. For me, I'm going to be using the column chart, so I'll remove these ones we have here now. I'll remove these and I'll remove this. I'll quickly format this. I'll stay on this and come to format. On the y-axis, I'll turn off the title. On the x-axis, I'll turn off the values and the title. Then what else do I need to do? I'll come to the general and title. I'll say customers age group. I'll simply just change the font style. Maybe I'll use this, reduce the size to 12. That's fine for now. Okay, one more thing, I'll centralize this. Okay, that's fine. This is what I want. So while I'm here, I'll just say Format Painter. Great. So what I need to do finally is just change the title for this. I'll come to Format, General, title now. I'll name this title, I'll say how likely are customers going to recommend our services? So it's more like asking a question. How likely are customers going to recommend our services? Great, so good. One more thing. So this is what's going to happen now. So we have this formatted in this order. We have age between 18 to 35 first, then we have 36 to 45, then we have above 65, above 46, which is okay. For how likely are customers going to recommend our services, we have extremely likely first, which is good. We have likely, then we have not likely, which is also okay. So what I'm trying to say, it follows a particular order. So we have not likely, we have likely, then extremely likely. In this case, we have 18 to 35, 36, then above 45, above 46, which means either follows an ascending or descending order, and the category has to follow also. So we can't just be moving from likely to not likely, then extremely likely. We have to follow a particular order. So that's great, that's fine. Next, let's say we want to see the percentage of customers now and satisfaction rating. So we pick another chart, that's another stack bar chart now. Then now we want to say customers percentage based on satisfaction rating. Great. So this is what we have here. We have very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, then very dissatisfied. So this is also okay. We can just come now, make a small modification here, come to the y-axis, turn off the title, come to the x-axis, turn off the values and the title, then finally come to the data labels and turn it on. Great. So you can also see that this follows a particular order. The categories follows a particular order. We have the very dissatisfied, then we have neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, then we have somewhat satisfied, then very satisfied. We are going to have a problem later. It's not going to be a problem though, because we're going to solve it. So we can actually change the title for this to say, how satisfied were customers to our services? or we can say how satisfied were customers to our services. Okay, that's fine. So that's fine. We can just come change the font style like I did earlier. Reduce the size to 12. That's fine. Oh, finally, I need to make sure. Why not I just click here, click on Format Painter, and take it here. Fine. So now we have 3. We need, let's go check. Table view, survey results. So we need to do the same thing for the needs met, responsiveness, and comments. So let's say we want to do for responsiveness. So we need to come pick another chart, another stacked bar chart, and say we want the total customers percent by responsiveness. Wait, so this is where a simple problem comes. Let's say now I'll click on this, say Format Painter, and I'll format everything to this also. Great, this is fine. So what I have here now is somewhat responsive, very responsive, not so responsive, and extremely responsive. But we don't want to sort it this way. We actually want to sort it based on the category. We want to say it should go from, let's say we want to go from not so responsive to somewhat responsive, then very responsive, then extremely responsive. That's the order we want to follow. Now, if I come here and say I want to sort this axis by responsiveness, I'm still not going to get that same order. Rather, what I'm getting is very responsive, somewhat responsive, not so responsive, extremely responsive. That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting. I'm still not going to get that same order. So how do we fix this now? To fix this, we simply need to come to our table view. We can actually do this here, or we can do it in Power Query. So we can come to report view, transform data. Now we want to deal with the responsiveness. We want to sort it in a particular order. That's the responsiveness. We want to sort it in a particular order. We can actually say we want to add a column, conditional column. Then we can call this column sort responsiveness. What do we want to sort now? We want to base this on responsiveness. So when the responsiveness is equal to, we have to be sure. Okay, let's say the spelling has to be exact spelling. When the responsiveness is extremely responsive, remember the spelling has to be exact. If it's extremely responsive, we can say this should be 1. We can add another clause. When responsiveness is equals to not so responsive, no, now we need to sort it in a particular order. So how do we move from extremely responsive? So we need to come to very responsive. So I need to move this to be sure very responsive. So I'll change this now to be very responsive. Make sure the spelling is exact. Very responsive should be 2 in that order. What's the next one? Then we want to be, that's somewhat responsive should be next. Then finally not so responsive. So when responsiveness in this case is equal to somewhat responsive now, this should be 3. Then finally this should be, the last one should be 4. That's the last one in this case is going to be not so responsive, so it should be 4. So we have extremely responsive as number 1, very responsive as number 2, somewhat responsive as number 3. Then the last one, which is not so responsive, should be number 4. So I'll click on OK. Great. So we have it here already, the sort responsiveness. So I can come to File now. I can click on Close and Apply. So once this is done, I'll come to Table View here. I'll stay on the responsiveness and I'll say sort column by. I'll sort it based on sort responsiveness. So I'll stay on responsiveness. I'll say sort column by. I'll say sort by. That's the sort responsiveness column. Then I'll come to my report view now. This is my what is it called now? Responsiveness. I can now come and say sort axis. I can say sort by responsiveness. Now look at the way it's being sorted now. So we have not so responsive, we have somewhat responsive, very responsive, and extremely responsive. This is how we want it to be sorted. So we can either decide to sort it in ascending or descending order. That's totally up to us to sort it that way, but this is how we want it to be sorted. Fine. So we've taken care of that. So next is needs met. So for needs met, we're simply going to come pick another stacked bar chart. Once we have the stacked bar chart selected, we're going to pick our total customers percent once more. Then we'll come to needs met. So for needs met, once I'm here, I'm going to select one of the charts we have already. I'll come to Format Painter and I'll simply click on needs met. Great. So for needs met now, we have not so well, we have not at all well, extremely well, somewhat well, and very well. If we sort this by needs met, we're still not going to have the order we desire. The order we desire in this case is we want extremely well, very well, somewhat well, not so well, not at all well. That's the order we desire. So to do this now, we need to come to transform data. So while we're in Power Query now, what we want to do is create a sort column for our needs met. So we'll come to Add Column, Conditional Column. This column, we can actually say needs met sort, or we can just say needs sort. So we're referring to our needs met column. I'm going to say needs met. If it's equal to, I'm going to shift this so we see the needs met. Where's the needs met column? Can't find it here. I'm going to cancel this and shift. I want to see the needs met column. Okay, yeah, this is needs met column. So I'll come back to conditional column once more. Yeah, so fine. So this column is needs sort. Now we want to say if the needs met is equal to extremely well. Remember the spelling must be same, extremely well. This should be number 1. We want it to be number 1. Next, if the needs met, this time around, if the needs met is equal to very well, this should be number 2. Next, if the needs met is somewhat well, that's needs met is somewhat well. This should be number 3. Next, if the needs met is not so well, this should be number 4. So once we're done with this, I can say the last one, which is not so well at all, should be number 5. So I'm going to just bring this up and say that should be number 5. I'll click on OK. So we can actually just verify before we go to Power BI. I'll just bring this sort. So extremely well is number 1. Not so well is number 4. very well is number 2, somewhat well is number 3. So we have the sorting order we desire. I can come to file now, say close and apply. So once we're here, we'll come to table view. I'll stay on the needs met column. I'll say I want to sort the needs met column now. I want to sort this column by the need sort column, which is the column we just created. Then I'll go to the report view now. I'll say I want to sort this. I want to sort this by needs met. Okay, I want to sort it in ascending order. So you can see how we're moving now. We're moving from not at all well to not so well to somewhat well to very well and extremely well. That's how we want it to be sorted. So we're done with needs met. We need to reduce the size of these charts. So that's how you can actually visualize the needs met. So for this, we need to change the titles. For this, we can actually say title should be how responsive their customers to our services. How responsive were customers to our services. I'll put a question mark there. So we have extremely responsive. So where customers need met. How well were customers needs met. So that settles it. So we have the title we desire. We're going to format this much more later. So then finally we have one more to go, and that should be comments. That should be comments. So for comments, we can also bring another stack bar chart. This should be here. We can then say customers percent, then we can say comments. So finally, I'll stay on this once more. I'll say format painter and bring it here. So you can see the different comments we receive from different customers. High quality, reliable, good value for money this time around, good value for money, useful, poor quality, ineffective. So one thing that is wrong here, ideally, unique ought to be up here. Unique ought to be up here. So you can go ahead. For me, I really don't want to go through all that. Ideally, you also go through the same process we went through by creating a custom column, then sorting it in the order you want it. From high quality will be number 1, reliable should be number 2, that way. But for now, I feel this is also okay. Doesn't have any issue at all. So we have the charts already, so we can actually name this, give it a different title and say customers comments. Customers comments on our services. Great. So with this, you've actually answered the questions. It's more like customers age group. You have 18 to 25, 35 percentage and all that. But there's one unique questions we ask. One unique question we actually ask is to calculate the health score for each of the customers. To calculate the health score for each of the customers. So we need to calculate the health score. We are also going to calculate the health score based on these 5 different questions we have here. So I come to table view now. The health score is going to be based on the NPS score, the satisfaction rating, the comment, the needs met, and the responsiveness. We're going to use these 5 factors to calculate the health score for each of the customers, which is more like the customer satisfaction score. overall satisfaction. In this case, that's what's going to be. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is assign weight to each of these variable we want to use now. The NPS score, we're going to be doing the calculation based on 100%. So what I'm trying to say is, we're going to be doing our calculation based on 100%. Our calculation is going to be based on 100%. 100%. So we need to assign weight to each of the variable. So say our NPS score, what weight are we going to assign to our NPS score of 100? Out of the 100, what weight are we going to assign? What I mean by weight in this case, order of priority. We can say we want to assign a weight of NPS score should receive 25%. What needs met, satisfaction rating, and what's the other one? So I'll quickly remove this. I hope you understand what I'm saying now. So it's more like assigning a weight to each of the variable. We're going to assign a weight to, we say NPS score should take a weight of 25%. Out of the 100% we want to calculate, out of the 100 score, we want to give NPS 25. Then we want to give satisfaction rating. Let's say we want to give satisfaction rating 20. We want to give needs met, let's say 25 also. Responsiveness, we want to give it 10. Then comments, we want to give it, let's say 20, maybe 10, to sum everything to 20. So for this, I've done the calculation already. The measure is a bit long, so I'm simply going to copy it and bring it here. But I'm going to explain it one step after the other. So I'm simply going to go to where I've written the measure. Like I said, it's a bit long, so I'm just going to grab it, copy it, and bring it back here. So I'll stay on calculations now. One thing I'll do is just to delete this. So I'll stay on calculations. So what I'll do, I'll come to a new page. I'll stay on calculations. I'll say new measure. I'll simply paste. Now, I'm having a lot of errors. It's fine. We're going to fix that. But I just want to run you through the measure. So we're calculating the customer satisfaction score, which is more like the head score in this case. Now, we're giving the NPS score. You know, in the table, we had NPS score, which is NPS in this case. So it's no longer NPS score here, it's actually NPS. So we're giving the NPS a priority of 20, which is more like a weight of 20. 20 in this case is 0.2, which is 20, because everything is based on 100%. NPS score is receiving a weight of 20, which is 0.2. Now, if we're giving NPS 0.2, within the NPS score, we have different score. Remember that the score is based on 0 to 100. 0 being they are not going to recommend our services to anybody. We already classified that, like 0 to is it 0 to, let's say, 20, a bit 0 to 0 to 6 or 0 to 5, 0 to 4. We said not likely. We've done that before now. Then we said between 6 to 7 likely, then 8 to 10 extremely likely. So what we're doing in this case, we're simply saying, if we're doing a switch statement here, ideally, okay, so we're doing a SumX, the SumX is based on the survey, which is the name of the table in this case. So for this case, it's not survey now, it's going to be survey results. That's our table name. Now we're doing a switch statement in this case. We're saying switch true if the survey result, remember our table name is survey result. So I'm simply going to copy this now to avoid these errors. So I'm simply going to say if the survey results NPS, if the score for that customer is 10, give that customer 100 mark. That's what we're doing here. We're saying if it's 9, remember somebody gave us a score of 9. We're saying give that customer 80. Then finally, not finally now, sorry. We're saying if it's 8, give that customer 60. If it's If it's 7, give that customer 40. Now, if it's 6, give that customer 20. And finally, if it's less than 5, give that customer 0. So what it means is, if it's less than 5, give that customer 0. That means that customer is not satisfied with our, is not going to recommend our service to anyone. So we're just giving the customer 0, because the customer is saying, I'm not going to recommend your service to anyone. So basically, we're assigning the value, and once we're done with this, we can finally then multiply this by 0.2, which is like 20%. 20% is the weight we assigned to NPS score. Remember, 20% is the weight we assigned to NPS score. That's why you're seeing the SumX now. After everything, we're doing this switch function now. We're multiplying this by 0.2. That's because we assign a weight of 20% to NPS score. Now, for overall satisfaction, so for overall satisfaction score, this is actually the variable. This is NPS score. So for overall satisfaction score is actually based on the column overall satisfaction. So what we're saying, we're also doing the same thing here. We're saying if the customer is very satisfied, give the customer 100. But overall satisfaction is having a weight of 30%. That's why we're having 0.3 here. So what I'm basically doing is changing the table name, because the table I had earlier is actually survey. So I'm changing this to survey results. So this is overall satisfaction. Let me check. So we don't have overall satisfaction here, rather we have satisfaction rating. So I'm going to delete this. So what we have is satisfaction rating. So I'm going to delete this, sorry. Just simple editing, satisfaction rating. So this is survey results. So I'm just editing. I can't be writing this. The video is gonna be too long. So this is satisfaction rating. This column is based on satisfaction rating. So the table name is survey results, and this is based on satisfaction rating. So I'm going to delete this. Remember, is survey results, then this is satisfaction rating. So I'm going to simply delete this. So finally, what I'm saying here is, if the satisfaction rating is very satisfied, give it 100. If it's somewhat satisfied, 60. If it's neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, give it 40. If it's somewhat dissatisfied, 20. And very dissatisfied, 0. And everything is based on a weight of 30%. So we're giving 30% to, which is more like 30 priority to satisfaction. That satisfaction rating now. We're giving satisfaction rating a weight of 30. That's why we're actually multiplying here by 0.3. Now let's go to comments. So for comments, so what we have is actually comments. It's not comment on service, it's comments we have. So I can just delete this and say, first I'll say this is survey results. Now this should be survey results and its comments. This should be survey results and its comments. So this should be survey results and it's referring to comments. So this should be survey results and it's referring to comments. This should also be survey results and it's referring to comments. This should be finally survey results and it's also referring to comments. I'll simply delete this. So for comments, of course, if you receive a comment of high quality, that's automatic, you're giving that 100%. If you receive a comment of reliable, is 80. Good value for money is also 80. Useful is 60. Ineffective is 20. Then poor quality is 0. That's what we're doing here. So if a customer, for example, if the customer's comment was poor quality, so in terms of comment, that customer will receive a 0 mark. Now, comment is receiving a weight of 10. That's why we're doing multiplied by 0.1%. So of the 100, comment is getting 10. Overall satisfaction is getting 30. NPS score is getting 20. That means we have 60 out of it already. We're left with 40. So we're going to needs met now. So needs met is actually taking 20, a weight of 20. So this was simply going to delete this. We're going to delete this and say this should be needs met. Then finally, I'm going to edit this and say this should be needs met. I'm also going to delete this. This should be needs met. I'm going to delete this also. This should be needs met. And finally, this should be needs met. Needs met. So for needs met, if your needs were if it was met extremely well, 100, very well, 80, somewhat well, 60, not so well, 40, not at all well, that's 0. So needs met is also receiving a weight of 20. So we had 60 given out already. Now another 20, which is 0.2 now, making it 80. So to make it 100, that's when we have the responsiveness. So this is also survey results. That's the name of our table. So this is survey results responsiveness. So I'm just going to delete this and say responsiveness. I'm also going to delete this backwards so I can get the table name correct. Responsiveness. I'll finally delete this. I'll say responsiveness. Finally delete this. I'll say responsiveness once more. So with this responsiveness now, extremely responsive 100, very responsive 80, somewhat responsive 60, not so responsive 40. We're giving it 40 because it was responsive but not so responsive. So if it was not responsive, that means we're going to have 0, but we don't have not responsive in our data. So with this, we are done with assigning the weight to all the variable we're using, from responsiveness to needs met to comment to NPS score, and finally to overall satisfaction. So this is just the entire measure. The first measure, which is the variable NPS score, we're simply summing this SumX. We're using the SumX, the switch. Then remember, we're only multiplying by 0.2 because we assigned a weight of 20. If you want to change the weight, depends on the order of priority for you. If you feel the NPS score should receive more attention than the satisfaction, overall satisfaction, is up to you. So all you simply do is just change the weight. If you change the weight here to 0. Maybe let's say 0.3 and change overall satisfaction to 0.2, that means you're simply switching the priority. You want to give more priority to overall satisfaction. That's NPS score compared to overall satisfaction. So it's up to you. But your entire weight should sum to 100. It should not exceed 100. It should sum to 100. You can actually exceed 100 if you have more variables. But for now, we're only having 5 variables and we want to sum our entire weight to be 100. So once we're done with this, I'll simply just commit this. Then I forgot to say something. So what we're doing now is, once we're done with all the weight and everything, what we're doing is simply summing everything up. So we're summing the NPS score, the overall satisfaction score, comment score, needs met score, and responsiveness score. That's all. So we'll commit this and we're good to go. So now we can then visualize each customer and we can then determine their NPS score. So I'll simply just bring a table. I'll bring a table here. Once I have my table here, I'll come select a customer name. That's the customer name. And I'll select the customer satisfaction score. I'll sort this now. I'll sort this by satisfaction score. then you can actually see we have customers having satisfaction score of 8, 38, 44, 46, 52, 52, 56, 58. And also, one thing I'll do is stay here and say I want to reduce this to 0. So we can actually confirm this. What I mean by we can confirm this is if a patient or if a customer is giving us a satisfaction score of 100, if a customer is getting a satisfaction score of 100, let's go confirm this customer. This customer is Ethan Brown. Ethan Brown. Let's confirm Ethan Brown. Ethan Brown, survey results. Ethan Brown, that's the first customer. The NPS score is actually 10, which is good. Satisfaction, very satisfied. Comments, high quality. Needs met, extremely well. Responsiveness, extremely responsive. Great, which means the satisfaction score of 100 is actually correct. Now, let's go check this satisfaction score of 8 and 38, which is William Baker and Lily Edwards. So let's go to Baker and Edwards. Let's look for Baker and Edwards. Okay, this is Edwards, Lily Edwards. Lily Edwards gave us NPS score of 3. She's not likely going to recommend our service to anybody. She's very dissatisfied. She rated the comments poor quality, needs met not at all well, responsiveness not so responsive. So you can actually see why she's having satisfaction score of 8. Then one person we need to also check why she's having satisfaction score of 38. That's William Baker. Let's go confirm William Baker. William Baker. This is William Baker. She gave us NPS score of 5, which is likely, somewhat satisfied, poor quality, somewhat well, not too responsive. So you can actually see why the satisfaction score is actually low and why for some their satisfaction score is actually high. So if, for example, we need to come check, let's check now let's say, okay, we want to check Emily Hall. Emily Hall, we can come check Emily Hall. This is Emily Hall. She gave us NPS score of 10, extremely likely, very satisfied, unique, extremely well, extremely responsive. So you see why she's having a satisfaction score of 90. So once we have this done, one thing we don't need here is the total. So I'll simply come to format. I'll come to total. I'll turn it off. So with this, we are actually done with the survey analysis. We've answered the question. We simply analyzed the survey. Then we're able to calculate the health score, which is also the total, customer satisfaction score. One thing we can add to this is simply just, let's say we create a new measure now in calculations. I'll say new measure. I'll simply call this measure, I'll just say satisfaction. I'll say satisfaction. So I'm going to use a switch function here. I'm simply going to say switch. I'm going to say switch. What do I want to switch? I want to switch this to be true. What do I want to switch is the customer satisfaction score. Customer satisfaction score. So I want a situation where if the customer satisfaction score is equal to or greater than or equal to 80, this should be a very satisfied customer. Very satisfied customer. Now I want a situation where and if that's the customer satisfaction score in this case, if the customer satisfaction score is greater than or equal to let's say 50 now. Should I say 50? If it's greater than or equal to 50, okay, and at the same time the customer satisfaction score is less than or equal to less than 80 now. Yeah, so if it's greater than or equal to 50 and is less than 80, that simply means, I'll close the bracket, that simply means this customer is moderately satisfied. That's what I want to say. So this customer is moderately satisfied. Moderately satisfied. And finally, if the customer satisfaction score is finally, let's say, less than 50, that means this customer is not satisfied. So with this, we're done. Yeah. So it's simply saying if the customer is, if it's greater than 80 or equal to 80, is very satisfied. And if the satisfaction score is greater than or equal to 50 and less than 80, moderately satisfied, then the customer satisfaction score is less than 50, not satisfied. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to commit this. I'm going to add it to my table. For clarity, I'm going to add it to my table so I don't just display values. So I'll just say satisfaction. Great. So you can see why we created that measure now, so we can have a bit of clarity in our table. We can tell if the customer is very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, or moderately satisfied, or not satisfied at all. So with this, we're actually done with the report. You can actually apply any formatting to the entire report. We're not really doing much formatting here. If you want to format the report, you can go ahead and format it. You can format this table visual also. You can simply just come to format. You can start with the cell or specific column element, and this time around you can see customer satisfaction score. You want to apply it to all. You scroll down and you say you want to centralize this. You can change this from this to satisfaction, turn everything on, and say you also want to centralize it. So you can go ahead and give it any formatting you want. But the most important thing, we've been able to calculate the health score, which is also the customer satisfaction score. So back to page 1. So one thing we can do here, one formatting we can do, let's say we want to highlight the values, the highest values. We want to highlight the highest values and probably the lowest values, or just the highest values in this case. So you can simply just select one of the charts and come to formats. Now we're talking about the bars. We want to give the bars, the highest value, a different color. So this time around, I'm going to go to conditional formatting. It's going to be based on rules actually. So I'm going to say the calculation we're working with here is actually total customers. So I'm going to say total customers. If total customers is equal to 0, I would say, okay, give it the same blue color. But then a new rule is if the total customers is equal to 100, if it's equal to 100, I'll say, okay, give it a darker blue, and I'll click on OK. So this automatically highlights the highest value. So one thing we can do is stay on it, click on Format Painter, format every other one, Format Painter, format every other one, Format Painter, every other one, Format Painter, this, Format Painter, and finally this. So you can go ahead and apply any formatting you want to apply to the visuals we've created, but you can actually see that we've been able to analyze the survey perfectly, and it's actually interesting. And we've also been able to calculate the health score. So with this, we're actually done with the video. If this video was helpful, you can leave a like